this video, we're going to talk about balancing in horsemanship, or balance in horsemanship. Whenever I teach clinics, and or especially Liberty clinics, I always ask the people, why are you here? Like, what has drawn you to me? Like, why do you want to take lessons from me? Why do you want to do this? And a lot of them go, well, I want a better connection with my horse. I want to really have a cool, awesome working relationship with my horse. I want to be able to, still show and perform with my horse, but not compromise, my relationship or my horsemanship while I do that. They want to feel better rhythm. They want to feel better flow. They want to feel at one with their horse. A lot of my biomechanics clinics, people want to feel in that rhythm, and they want to feel flow, and they want everything to happen very easily, and there to not be so much force or aggression or that kind of thing within their work with their horse, whether it's on the ground or whether they're riding with their horses. So this was something that I spent this holiday really trying to articulate, because it's such a difficult thing to articulate how we can achieve that. I mean, it sounds simple. So I broke it down to one word. I always think if I can break it down to one word, then it's kind of easier to sort it out and try to teach it to people. So the word that I came up with was balance. And I've heard it a lot in horsemanship. And the one big thing that I've heard about it is that we really want to try to achieve balance with our horse in all ways. So I always look at things in a holistic manner, and I always want to make sure that I can balance everything. I can balance myself, I can balance my horse, I can balance our relationship together, I can balance the environment in which my horse lives. I try to balance everything so that we can come to this place of harmony. So I look at balance equaling harmony and flow and rhythm and that oneness that we talked about before. Balance, the definition of it is equilibrium. But we can't ever just fully 100% balance, because we have to have opposing forces. So we are always in a state of balancing. So this day that Maverick and I woke up, I might feel a little bit different, or he might feel a little bit different. And so we got to work at maybe balancing things a little different today than we did yesterday. Or today the herd dynamic might have changed and his personality might be just a little bit different because he's been bossing a horse out in the herd a little more, so he's going to boss me a little more. So it's always in a state of balancing. So I also looked at this balancing and why it's so difficult, because it isn't easy. It is a hard thing to do. And I looked at the horses and or the people that come to me. So I do a lot of rehab work. And so those horses come from a side of that where they are very competitive. They're ex-show horses, or they've been really working hard and they've injured themselves, or they mentally have issues. That's the kind of horses that I get from that side. And that's a side where the balance hasn't been there. There's been more force, there's been aggression, there's been no release, there's been no softness. It's all been very hard and go, 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 and eventually the horse's physical body breaks down, and then eventually the mental body breaks down. But then I get people from way more of the other spectrum, and they've maybe seen that. So a lot of the rescues, or the rescue horses, or the rescue people, where they've seen that side of things, and they don't ever want to go there. They want to be able to work with their horses in a manner that's like soft and consent from the horse, and neither one of those things are bad or good. There's a time and a place for either one, but if we're far extreme the one way on the teeter-totter of balancing, and far extreme the other way, there's no balance. And if we don't have balance, we don't have harmony, and we don't have flow, and we don't have rhythm, and we don't have trust, all those words in there. So that's what I try to do, is work on that balancing. So the symbol that came to my mind with that was the yin and the yang symbol. And so that's where we look at, you can't have one without the other. That's the definition of that. And it's always in a constant state of flow, And there's always a little bit of yin within the yang. And that symbol represents those opposing forces. I also looked at it and went, well, how come we struggle so much in our Western side here of, balancing that? We just can't seem to balance it. So I did a little research, and the research that I learned was actually, oh my gosh, the Western kind of definition of that yin and yang is way different than the Eastern, where it originated, and we gotta look at it as they complement each other. And that's the biggest word I want you guys to take out of this, is that those two opposing forces. So if we look in liberty, that's pressure and draw. So, or drive and draw. So, those are two opposing forces. And one can't work without the other. They have to complement each other. One is not bad and one is not good. So the hardest thing that I deal with most people is what I call boundaries. And boundaries are the pressure. Boundaries is the pressure side of things. And people have a real difficult time with it. They either are too aggressive with creating their boundary, or they are way too passive and they look at boundary as being a swear word. Like, oh my God, I can't put a boundary in here. I want my horse to consent to everything, and I want my horse to be joyous, and I want that friendship. But at the same time, the horse is seeking those boundaries because they need structure. Boundaries create structure, but they need to be done appropriately. So I looked at, why is that? Why is that such a hard thing for us to implement boundaries? Because it's the number one thing in horse training and in dog training of people having a difficult time implementing them. So one of them is lack of education. So lack of education on how we are actually going to approach the horse to create those boundaries, or even within ourselves or a dog. But the other one is because of how we've been brought up and our culture here. We look at those are two opposing forces, the yin and the yang. We look at them as to be in conflict with each other, that one is bad and one is good. And that's not it at all. It's that they have to complement each other. And so we have to change our whole mindset and concept around what that means when we need those two opposing forces. We can't have one without the other. It just doesn't work. So we have to be able to complement each one of those. So I look at my boundary, that how can I create that boundary is through more fun and more play and more energy and forward movement, as opposed to be get out of my space and don't do this, and that it's a bad thing and I have to eradicate it, and I can only just be soft and good and this and that. But I also need the empathy, and I need the compassion, and I need the softness in there as well. But if I have too much of that, then the horse doesn't feel safe, and the horse takes everything into their own hands, and then it can actually be unsafe for us to be around them. And or we see anxiety. So that's where we see huge anxiety, depression in people, when there isn't that structure and that boundary there. So that's a little bit of where I came from to write it up and explain it a little bit, and to work with the horse. So I'm going to just give a quick example when it comes to liberty with horses, and that is what I talked about before, is that we have drive or pressure, and we have draw. And within there we also have neutral, which is the middle of the yin and the yang. That's the balance. It's always continuous, but we're trying to achieve that all the time. And so even within our draw, we have to have some yield, or we have to have some pressure, because if the horse is drawing too quick into us or pushing into us, then we have trouble, but we're still asking for a draw. So even in a draw, we have to balance the yin and the yang. We also have to balance to be able, can we send the horse out and send them away? And balance that with how we're doing that. If we've got too much pressure, then we won't be able to bring them to us. So when I have rehab horses that come to me who have had way too much pressure, and they're kind of have a disregard for it even, then I have to actually, raise that up a little bit and use more of it towards them. But then if I have a rescue horse that comes to me, they need more draw. They need that draw, and they need that help in there to be okay. And so we have to balance that each time we work with that horse. So one horse I may have to be way on the other side for a little while because they have no manners and they're very pushy and they have no idea how to deal with that pressure and they don't get releases from that pressure. And then I have to work way on the other spectrum where the horse doesn't even want to be near a human and they're worried about, coming anywhere near you. So I may have to work on that very differently for a long time, and it may take me months to get closer to where the teeter-totter can be in the middle and balance a little bit better. But truly, when we can balance that, this is what we get. We get a horse that's safe, they're trusting, I feel safe around them, he feels safe around me. We both give or take a little bit. One day he might be really, really, ready to take on a role of everything, and I'm not, right? And so he can carry that weight a little bit for me, or vice versa. So this is what I want, that I want a horse that can truly, be happy away from the herd and even be with me, and not worry about anything, and I can take them in a new environment and they trust and they look towards me for that help and that safety. But that can't happen with being on one side of the teeter-totter or one side of the other, or too much yin or too much yang. So as soon as we can meet down in the middle, this is what we get.